Welcome, Buff fans. It's a bye week, and Adam and I we just couldn't stay away from each other long enough, so we had to do another analysis video. And Adam, we're just gonna catch up on just everything. And look at the Buffs through 7 games. It's obviously a little past the halfway mark of the season, but it's a good time for a bye. We talked about it the other day after practice. I think it's a good time for everybody. The players are really banged up, and I think that the coaches need this time. Talking to Shermer and Livingston the other day. I think they need this time to kind of, all right, let's exhale a little bit, self-scout going into the last 5 games.
Yeah, there's just less pressure, right? From a day-to-day timing standpoint. And these players have been grinding since the beginning of camp.
Hmm.
At the beginning of August, we have not been grinding alongside them. We've been there, long covering the team, and even that gets mentally taxing. So
Yeah.
if I'm mentally taxed, I can imagine what is going on inside that building right now because obviously they're in the meat grinder there, and uh, yeah, and it's great that I wish every season had 2 bye weeks like they have this
Yep.
year,
Hmm.
like they did last season. I think that is really healthy for a college football program to be able to just kind of catch your breath a couple times during the season. Shoot, I would vote for 3 or 4 bye weeks during the season because these guys need a break sometimes.
Yeah, and it obviously couldn't work out this way, or else there'd be 2 weekends that were completely no football, and they wouldn't do this. But it would be nice to me if it was like you play four, you have a bye. You play four, and you have a bye. The whole country couldn't do that, but if they could figure out a way for CU to do that, that'd be great. Um, just every 4 games take a bye. But I think I don't know. I think it might be nice for this team, as banged up as they are, to have two within the last 5 games. Just to kind of, you've got a tough stretch coming up here with Utah coming out of the bye, and then Arizona, and then two West Virginia, which I know is at the bottom of the standings, but that's a long trip, and you can't take that for granted. Then you get that bye week going into the last two. So I think they're probably good placement for the byes.
Yeah, and talking about that schedule, the Buffs could win any of them. They could lose any of them.
Hmm.
That is life in the Big 12 right now for the Colorado Buffaloes. And uh, real quick, I've got to divert. We're in a bye week, Brian.
Yeah.
My wife was telling me this morning that you helped put out like a neighbor's fire. And I'm hearing this and I'm going, okay. I'm thinking like a little just baby fire. And then she shows me the video that your wife put on social media. I'm like, holy crap. I got to hear the story. I'm sorry. We should have led with this. What happened there, man?
Yeah, it was Tuesday night, I believe it was, and I'm actually, I was down, my office is in the basement, and working on something, and my son Mason, who you've met a lot,
Mhm.
he opens the door and he says, "Dad, the neighbor's house is on fire." I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, the house is on fire." And I run upstairs, and um, you know, I'm just in you know sweats or whatever, and socks, and I'm standing there, and my first instinct was grab my phone and like take a picture. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I need to put shoes on and go help. And so I did that. And one of the other neighbors, his wife was calling 911, and he and I both ran over, and he grabbed the hose at a neighboring house. Um, the homeowner helped me, helped him grab a hose, and I just grabbed it. And so me and the other neighbor just started putting out this fire, and it was um, their trash can that sits on the outside, but on the side of the garage, had caught on fire somehow, and flames were just shooting up the side of the house. And
Like you need to splice in that video, Brian, when we were talking about this because that was pretty intense, man.
yeah, it
If that was
was.
my neighbor, I'd be a little freaked out.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, honestly, it's scary because I don't know about you, but to me, like fire is one of my biggest fears, as far as like something happened to the house. And we were all talking about this was 7 or 8 at night, about 7:30 at night, something like that. Like, man, if it was like 4 hours later and everybody's asleep and nobody really catches it, that could have impacted a lot of people. And luckily for our neighbors, it was really just the garage that the exterior of the garage that got burned up a little bit. And Yeah,
That's impressive based on that footage.
yeah, yeah.
Thankful for them. Yeah, that's great that there wasn't more damage.
But
What
me and the other neighbor,
you can
yeah,
play the fifth if you need to, but what gets a trash can on fire like that?
I have no idea. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Throwing away.
people gotta live their lives. What are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
I mean, you cook something and it's not quite put out or something. I don't know.
I don't know. That seems aggressive, but okay.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. Neighbor and I, this other guy, we were able to put out all the flames before the fire department got there, and they got there quickly, but we were able to like get those flames out quickly. Then we deferred to them and was like, no, you guys take care of it from here on out. So,
You've got a lot of firefighter experience this fall. They had to rescue you from an elevator a few weeks back, and
that's
now
true. I forgot about
they're
that.
coming to rescue your neighbor.
I need to get one of those like plastic firefighter hats that the kids wear and start wearing that around.
Firehouse subs, go
That's
to
right.
Firehouse and get one of those.
That yeah, that should be my next firehouse or firefighting experience is going to firehouse. But
Well,
yeah,
good for you, man. That's cool that you stepped up and supported your neighbor in that way.
yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
scary situation for them, I'm sure, and but everything was okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
Any excitement on your bye week?
Not like that. No. No, I've been just getting caught up on everything and two mornings ago I got up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and just couldn't sleep and I put one of those lights on my forehead and just went out with my dog and there was fog everywhere and it was just kind of a cool atmosphere. So
Yeah,
I've gotten outside a little bit more this week, which is always nice. And I'm going to go with my family to Kansas to hang out with my wife's family this weekend. So it'll be a good time just to kind of, I love football.
yeah,
Uh, and by the end of this bye weekend, I'm going to be ready to get back to football, but just having that little bit of a mental break to be able to hang out with people that I haven't seen in a long
yeah.
time is going to be great.
Well, it's good to step away from things you love sometimes, you know, uh, or else or else you might not love it as much. I think if you never step away from it. So I think it's a good thing to have these bye weeks, and hope you enjoy Kansas.
Yeah, I will. And our middle child is going to drive most of the way out there. He's 15 years old with his permit and
Hmm.
trying to get some miles in there. So, uh,
Yeah, I
good
know that
driver.
struggle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was he's a kart driver and has dreams to be an F1. So I know that we're going to be safe because
yeah,
he doesn't take that mentality on him with the road, but he's got that experience that most kids don't at this age.
yeah. You're probably safer than when you drive, right?
Debatable for sure.
Yeah, I don't quite feel that way. I've got a 15-year-old as well that I'm trying to get some hours for, and it's been a little slow go. He's a little under 3 hours behind the wheel, but I don't feel quite that safe yet. We're still making sure we go on roads that aren't heavily populated with cars at this point. So I don't think I would take him to let him drive to Kansas yet, but that might be, a few months down the road.
Well, the timing aspect of it is the most difficult. I feel like if I remember back to when I was 15 and just when you're merging onto a road, just kind of
Hmm.
feeling, okay, what does it take to get in there? And that you only get that by reps. And
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
good that the state is taking better precautions with these younger drivers because until recently, the only accident that was my fault was when I was just the first week of having my license, and I was in a car with a bunch of friends
Hmm.
at a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, and I was not paying attention at a stoplight. Barely rear-ended somebody, but it was still enough to where we had to pull over. And so I like that they don't allow kids nowadays to have a room full of friends the first
Yeah.
week they get their license.
Yeah, it's actually, I think is it 6 months or a year that they can't drive with friends.
Yeah,
So
there's like a progression. You can
yeah.
add people in after
Hmm.
6 months, and then yeah, I think after a year you're good to go.
I think
But
it's
yeah.
one, I think it's, I don't know what it is. It's either 6 months or a year until you can start driving your friends around. So I like that, because I remember, getting my license and didn't do anything real stupid, but stupid enough that it's like, I probably wouldn't have done that if I didn't have friends in the car, you know? So, so yeah, it's a good progression.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys are safe with him driving.
We will be. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he's going to do a great job. So
Yeah.
you'll see me on the other side.
Awesome. Well, yeah, all that stuff gives us gray hairs, and if we want to transition back to football, Robert
Let's
Livingston was
do it.
talking about having some more gray hairs this year because his defense is not producing those big plays. And how was that for a segue? Transition back into
That's
football.
good. That
But
was good.
yeah, I was just writing about. I'm just writing about that today too. But like, he talked about that. Adam, this defense was so good at those game-changing plays last year. And I was just looking up at the rankings this morning as we're doing this. I mean, I forgot they were top 10 last year in the country in takeaways, and they were obviously top 20 in sacks and top 20 in tackles for loss, and they're nowhere near those numbers this year. I mean, they're way down in takeaways, way down in sacks, and it's funny because the points per game they're allowing is almost exactly the same as last year, but it doesn't feel like last year, does it?
It doesn't. I was thinking about this because, folks can be upset that Robert Livingston is making this gigantic contract.
Hmm.
And they're not ranking highly in the conference in scoring defense right now. Um, I think teams have been able to scout Colorado a lot more based on last year and what Robert
Yeah.
Livingston did, based on what he told us on Tuesday of like, yeah, like they know we're going to play man coverage. They know we're going to be aggressive. And so they're getting the ball out really quick, which is keeping them from being able to get into the backfield. There's been a lot of pressures, not a lot of sacks like
Mhm.
last year. So uh, it's a work in progress when we've talked about this a bunch. When your leaders defensively is a sophomore,
Hmm.
it all of a sudden makes that not a group that is as experienced as it should be. You've got freshman edge players that are emerging, and Brandon David Swain that's playing a lot on the inside. So you've got young guys in there, and it's been maybe two steps forward, one step back for this defense so far this season. I feel like.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I'm just um, looking up some numbers for the season, and it's interesting. So I was saying how the points per game is similar to last year. So sorry, I'm trying to find where I have it. Last year, last year they gave up 23.1 points per game. This year it's 23.7. But if you take out like that sort of cosmetic touchdown that TCU scored with 19 seconds left, it's actually 22.7. So it's less than last year. So um, I guess that's the ultimate thing, right? Is the points allowed, and they're actually similar to what they were last year. It's just eh, you talk about the two steps forward, one steps back. The other numbers are just so dramatically different. They're Sam Houston State's the only team in the country that's given up more plays of 10 plus yards than Colorado. And the six takeaways. Yeah, I shared the stat with somebody yesterday. You remember how the Georgia Tech game started? With Georgia Tech turning the ball over on its first three possessions. 69 possessions on defense since then, they've produced three turnovers. So, it's been, they haven't been able to have those impact plays, which I think has allowed teams to hold the ball a little bit longer and just sustain some of those drives. And um, I think it hurts more because the offense is not as good as it was last year too. But I think overall this defense is just, it's not quite finding its way. And maybe it's getting there, but it's just not quite there.
Yeah, when you given up consistently over 200 yards on the ground, you're just not going to feel good as a fan
Right.
turning off the
Mhm.
TV or leaving Folsom Field, right? It's kind of the aesthetics part of it as well. But it is good that you put that points per game comparison to last year in perspective there. Now, early in the season you played Delaware, Wyoming. If you can get below that number by the end of the season, then
Yeah.
kudos to Robert Livingston. You really want to just kind of stay on that trajectory in terms of points per game with the expectation the offense will get a little bit better here going forward.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, if they can maintain that, right? If they're holding teams to 24 or less the rest of the season, I feel pretty decent about them being able to pick up some wins, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're averaging that defensively in 2025, and you don't go to a bowl game,
Yeah.
that's a problem. That's a
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
Now, it'll be tricky because if they hold Utah to 24 points, next week, that'll be impressive. If they can hold,
Mhm.
K-State in Manhattan to 24 or less, that'll be impressive. So we'll see. I think that I don't know how to really assess this defense overall because I feel like it hasn't been as good as last year. They've struggled at times. You look at that points number, like, well, that's actually similar, and all the injuries they've dealt with. I mean, we've talked about that big injury list. So much of it is on defense that um, you have to, in some ways, give Robert Livingston some kudos for he's putting together a patchwork defense almost every week, trying to figure out what's going to work. And I mean, how much rotation has there been at linebacker and corner? There's been some shuffling a little bit at safety, and the defensive line is so banged up that um, it's not the group that you win into the season depending on, right?
Yeah, and not fitting the right gaps early against the run defense.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of these pass interference calls that went against the defense, it just kind of throws on top of it like that. This has just not been quite as consistent and impressive a group as we expected going into the season. And if Jeremiah Brown can ball out like he did against Iowa State going forward,
Hmm.
I said it a couple days ago. I think this defense is going to be pretty salty going forward. They need RJ Johnson to get healthy or one guy to step up the cornerback, get Carter Stoutmeyer back, who had a rough start to the season, but has been improving back there at safety. Tawfiq Bayard, we know what we have from him. He's one of the few guys. Mari McNeil, we now know who he is. He's one of those guys that you can count on. Arden Walker, hopefully get him back in the mix. There's a lot of personnel that points to optimism for the rest of this season, but you still got to find uh, consistency out of linebacker and corner at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and London Merritt, Alex McPherson too have been really nice, finds, and they made some impactful plays as freshmen. But yeah, that linebacker spot, I feel like maybe the last two games they've kind of hit on a combination there with Reginald Hughes and Jeremiah Brown, to where if those guys can keep playing the way they have been, you're right. I think that this defense can take that next level. Who would you say is the defensive MVP through 7 games?
Tawfiq Bayard,
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I would say the same thing, which is crazy because he didn't play a whole lot the first 2 games.
Yeah.
That's almost a 5 game award. He really didn't start playing a lot until the Houston game, which they lose, but he was phenomenal that game. I think he's been. I mean, he would almost to me, he's in the running for even team MVP. I mean, he's been that good these last 5 games. If he can keep that up, and let's hope that whatever he did to his hand is not going to impact him and keep him out of games. And I don't know if it was just adrenaline that kept him going against Iowa State, but I hope that he can keep playing because he's been so good for them.
The good thing is it's a hand and he's a defensive back. So,
Yeah,
and we've already seen that he can catch it with that thing on.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, in fact, Robert Livingston joked he's going to have all the DBs wear clubs because they're apparently better at it.
remember when Chidozie Wankwo came out last year, and he looked like the Marshmallow Man. He had like
Yeah,
padding everywhere around him, and it was like
yeah,
every part of him hurt, but he was like ready to ball out, and he just would throw those pads around and get the
yeah.
job done.
Yeah, that's what Tawfiq Bayard's doing. So
Yeah,
it works. So anything else defensively? I mean, obviously this is a group that, like I said, if they maintain this, keep around that 24 points a game, I think they'll be okay. But they do have to start getting some of those takeaways and a few more sacks, right?
they do. Yeah. And I think DJ McKinney is a guy that seems primed for a pretty good stretch run here.
Yeah,
And I agree with Livingston. Like some of these preseason expectations just kind of get glorified. It's like if you're a preseason all conference guy, like you got to be perfect. And
yeah,
at the end of last season, DJ McKinney still was far from perfect. So
yeah,
it makes sense that he's still developing at this point.
yeah. And as Livingston pointed out, he was never a starter until last year. He came off. He played starter minutes or starter plays, I guess, at Oklahoma State, but it was not a starter for them. So yeah, he's still a young player. Offensively, again, mixed bag. I feel like you can say the same thing about the offenses, the defenses. It feels like maybe offensively sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back, but it's been a very mixed bag offensively. But I feel like they're getting a little bit better.
Yeah, it's been like swing dancing out there. You never know where this offense is going at
Right?
times, but uh, no, they seem to find some mojo in that second half, and
Yeah.
that's where the optimism comes in. Um, you've got a really tough test, the toughest they've had coming up at Utah, which ranks 10th nationally in scoring defense, second in the Big 12 behind Texas Tech. I went back and looked, Brian. Six of the first seven teams Colorado played, their opposing scoring defense, the teams they played, their scoring defense rank is in the top half of the FBS. So they've played some really solid defenses. No juggernauts. I think the highest on that ranking was 17.
Hmm.
So you'd expect more points per game than what they provided this season. They again going back to the aesthetics of things, doesn't it seem like they're kind of figuring things out a little bit, even if I do think it's still with them two steps forward, one step back. If you take that
Yeah.
game out at TCU out of the mix with just a really rough stretch at the end of the first half.
Yeah, I think so. Clearly it's not a good recipe, going to Utah with that scoring defense when, the other day, I mean, the 24 points they had against Iowa State's the most they've put up against an FBS opponent this year. They're averaging like 21 points a game against the five FBS teams they've played, and that's not good. They got to get better than that. But yeah, I mean, even TCU, they were moving the ball. I mean, at the end of the first half, the second interception comes after they move all the way down the field and they're right on the goal line. And so they were moving the ball a little bit, but then it's that step back with that interception, right? And so um, you know, in 24 points, you want to see more than that, but Iowa State, I think, is a pretty solid team, and so you'll take that. I think they're just having to do it in a very different way than last year. And I mean, the yards per game is not a whole lot different than it's been the last 2 years. It's just very different from how they're doing it, and I think they're much better at running the ball. Obviously, they're keeping the quarterback clean, but they're just not getting the ball in the end zone very much.
Yeah, and this is a better time of possession offense than what we
Yeah.
saw the previous 2 years, which is part of it. Like you got to equate that into helping the defense out a little bit and not having them be as short-winded as some of those quick three and outs when the O line was struggling with Shador in past years, and you're on the bench for a couple minutes and you're back out there. So
Hmm.
there's been some things, but yeah, I mean. I like that Pat Shermer said that he doesn't pay attention to things that make you that cause you to have thick skin because
Yeah.
no OC should be looking at social media because
Yeah.
everybody thinks they can call plays. It's the
Right.
most universal thing I think from a fan standpoint. Watching college football, he's done some nice things. He's getting better. Um, he's got to have a nice 5 weeks though. I think to close this out, Brian, to be the OC in 2026 now.
Yeah, I would think so. And
Nothing crazy, just solid football.
yeah, it's like we were saying about the defense. Stick around that 24 points a game. The offense has got to improve that. I think I don't know what they're at. Do you know what they're at? It's around 24 points a game.
It's about the
Um,
same, yeah.
yeah, I think it's a little bit more than what the defense is. I'm trying to look it up right here. 24.9. So they're about 25 points a game. Um, that's a little inflated because of the Wyoming and Delaware games where they hit over 30, but um, they've got to be better than that. I mean, I think they need to be closer to 28 down the stretch. And again, if that defense keeps their number about where it is and the offense can get up to about 28, I think they get enough wins to go to a bowl game. But yeah, I think that's key for Shermer to be able to solidify that job going into 2026 if he wants it. And you know, it's important for Salter. I think that he's got to keep improving, and I think he is improving. Coach Shermer talked the other day about that relationship is developing with him, and you can kind of start to see that. I know 2 games ago was the rough one against TCU, but I think he's done, with the exception of that first half, he's done some pretty good things the last 3 weeks, and he played pretty well against Iowa State.
He did. Caden Salter is a very complicated subject because it's not as black or white. I think as most Colorado fans want to make it out to be. Of
Yeah,
you got to go to Juju, he sucks. Or he graded out the best pass grade in the entire country out of quarterbacks on PFF this past week, and that throw to Joseph Williams in the back corner of the end zone is one of the best throws I've seen made at Folsom Field, honestly. I mean,
yeah,
you probably can make a long list there. I'm not saying it's number one or anything like that, but there are just some moments with him where, man, like you just see it. And that maybe is the most perplexing thing. It's
yeah,
even more so, it's almost like, Steven Montez was a little bit like that because he would sometimes do kind of the off platform throws and it would drive people crazy because he has a strong arm and he's not really giving himself the best chance to be as accurate
yeah,
as he can. Uh, Caden Salter is perplexing in some of the same ways, I feel like.
yeah. I think so. And even that throw you're talking about to Williams in the end zone, I felt like throw that 2 seconds earlier, and it's maybe not a dive, right in the corner. I think that's the most frustrating thing for me watching him is the amount of times that like a play will start developing. I'm like, oh, he's got this guy wide open, and then it's like 3 seconds later he throws it to him. It's like if you would have thrown it 3 seconds ago, it wouldn't have been such a dramatic play
Yeah.
there. And he didn't have a very good start the other day against Iowa State. It's interesting that he was the top rated in the country because I mean they were on the verge of three straight three and outs, and Joseph Williams kind of bailed them out by going low and getting that throw, which never should have been that low, but he kind of bailed them out, and that got things
Yeah.
going. That moved the chains a little bit, and that got things going, and maybe settled him in. But um, yeah, it's a mixed bag. I don't know how to figure him out. I mean,
You know what he is? He's like a streaky 3-point shooter,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
When
probably,
when he's on, man, forget about it. But there are times it's like you think about, okay, we got to bring
yeah,
somebody off the bench.
yeah. Here's a name I'll give you when you talk about 3-point shooters. Is he the Askia Booker of CU football?
Ooh, I got to wait 5 more games, I feel like. Well,
Remember, like,
Askia has the Kansas moment though. Like that.
but that's what I feel like with Caden Salter is like, and not that Iowa State was his Kansas moment, but he beat a top 25 team, right? And like, and I loved Askia. I loved covering Askia. I liked talking to him, and he was a good kid and all that. But he was a quirky guy. He was a unique guy. He was hard to figure out, and he would have just as many moments where you're like, oh my gosh, he's amazing, as he would, oh my gosh, he's frustrating. And why did he just do that? And I feel like that's Caden Salter.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna pay attention to the rest of the season. It's growing on me that comparison. I kind of like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that there. I think you're right with with that Steven Montez comparison as well, that both those guys just Montez would do the same thing, right? He'd have those moments where you're like, man, you're too talented to do that,
Yeah.
and that's how I felt with Salter a lot of times is, come on, you're too talented to do what you just did right there.
Well, all three of these guys are from based on our experience talking to them and getting a chance to know them. Definitely Steven Montez and Askia Booker more intimately than you and I with Caden Salter. But Caden was out at Big 12 Media Days. We had a chance to do one-on-ones with him, and we've
Yeah,
seen him enough. Leadership is just not the most natural component of their DNA.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so they have to kind of go outside of themselves to do that with all three of those guys,
yeah,
wouldn't you say?
yeah. I agree, and that feeds into my Askia Booker thing because I think that was the same with him, as he was not a natural leader. I think a lot of times Askia was at his best when he was with Spencer Dinwiddie, who could be the leader. When it was Askia's time, he wasn't necessarily the best leader, but he would shine, in different moments. I feel like that's Caden Salter. He's got to have some good guys around him to do that. So they need people to step up, whether it's Caden or whether it's you know, I don't know, Joseph Williams, Jordan Seaton, whoever. They've got to have some guys step up around him and lead a little bit. And but this offense has got to get better second half, that's for sure.
No doubt. This has been a transition after Shador and those receivers, and everybody expected there to be maybe a different look to this offense, but it's been still a little bit underperforming to what all of our expectations were, especially given that, had you told me the O-line would have performed this well through 7 games, the
Yeah.
running backs would be pretty darn solid, good tutelage from Marshall Faulk, that you would expect that points per game to be higher than it's been.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it was basically 4 sacks a game in the last 2 years. It's down to like two right now, which you'll take that. And by the way, a little tangent. The only reason the Skia Booker was on my mind is because he does he does a he's into horror
Okay.
films and things like that, and he does this podcast. And it's been popping up on my Instagram feed where he does this podcast called the Horrible Podcast or something like that, where he interviews like um, people like actors and things like that that are like in full costume, like so it's kind of interesting stuff. So
I gotta check this out. It's the month for that, man.
it is a month for
It's
that's
it's
probably
spooky season.
it's
Yeah.
probably why it's popping up. But like that's why I had a Skia Booker on my mind is because there's been a few times that you scroll through Instagram. It's like there's a Skia Booker talking to some horror film or horror actor or whatever. So you know,
Like
anyway,
I said, Caden Salter's a complicated topic. Askia Booker,
it's a complicated topic.
to your comparison, is a complicated topic.
Yeah, yeah. Well, awesome. I mean, anything else before we kind of wrap up our kind of off the rails bi-week podcast here?
Well, coaches on the road, I put up a story on
That's right. Yeah.
buffstampede.com talking about where all the coaches are out there, checking in on a lot of commits. They're targeting a quarterback in the 2026 class that's currently committed to Boston College. Keep an eye on that. They've targeted their top guy in the 2027 class at the quarterback position. So we're keeping tabs on that. And Brian, I know you got a chance to talk to Rick George, so you've got some great content coming on BuffZone as well.
Yeah, later on this weekend, chat with him about rev share and just kind of how that's going, and nothing earth shattering, but he kind of told me about just kind of the process and how it's going, and he's had good feedback from the athletes. I mean, they're all getting money, and getting those rev share checks, and it's an interesting process how that works, and just talking about the money and how that's coming in and things like that. So and then obviously I talked to him about the fan behavior and things like that, and he was very adamant like that. He goes, that's got to improve, and he goes, it's something that has been bothering him. Like he goes, I don't want CU to be known as this place that's that's got rude fans, and he goes, it's just as easy for them to say, hey, welcome to Boulder, as it is to say some
Yeah,
of the things that they've been saying. And he goes, I really want that to improve. And so this was, we talked before they knew whether they were getting a fine or not for Iowa State, which they didn't. But it's been some unfortunate. It's 2 home games in a row. With the BYU stuff, and then rushing the field is not the worst thing. But there's the incident where the fans trying to steal the helmet from Chase Sowell,
right.
which is just not a good moment. Yeah, it's not a good look for CU. So yeah, that he was big on that. Like look, we need to have better fan behavior.
Definitely. What was your take on Kansas also getting fined by the Big 12 in that situation? I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. I
They
think it
just
was.
don't want head coaches talking about the conference and press conference settings. Is that why?
I guess. I mean, I didn't actually hear all of Lance Leopold's comments, but um, he must have ripped the conference bad enough that they.
It wasn't that bad. I was surprised there was an equal fine there, but whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like I was surprised it was an equal fine. Let's put it that way, because we've been down at Texas Tech, and you know, uh, they should be fined for some of that. I mean, it's at least when we were down there. I mean, it was a dangerous situation for CU fans, and if there was literally a pocket knife, I know it's closed, but pocket knife being thrown to the Kansas sideline, that's a dangerous situation, and 25 seems a little low if they're going to be throwing things even more than tortillas.
Yeah, maybe the penalties went into that. The Big 12 is saying, well, you guys got penalized twice in that game,
Yeah,
regardless. I don't know, but yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I need to stop commenting on that. Texas Tech fans hate me enough already. So
Well, good thing you don't have to deal with them in person this year.
I
So
picked Texas Tech to win the Big 12 this year. I have nothing against that university. You call a spade sometimes. And
yeah,
that goes back to Colorado. The BYU chant, Colorado deserved that
yeah,
50K fine, in my opinion. So
yeah,
it's not a hypocritical thing. Like,
yeah,
I think that these fan bases do need to be held accountable for their actions.
yeah. And by the way, Joey McGuire seems like one of the coolest coaches, nicest coaches in the Big 12. And every time I've talked to a Texas Tech player the last couple of years at Media Day, they're awesome kids too. So I have nothing against Texas Tech either, but yeah, the fan base has got to be held accountable, and and CU's in particular, because that's who we cover. But you hope
Mhm.
there's no more incidents like that. And I'm not a big fan of field rushing in general, but I will say if you're going to, people are like, you don't do it for Iowa State. Well, it's a top 25 win, right? And there have not been. I went back and look. There's not a lot of top 25 wins the Buffs have had at home. In all the time we've been covering it, there's only, especially when CU's unranked. There was the two in 2016 where CU was ranked higher, and they beat Utah and Washington State. But I think it's like four or five uh, times that since we've been covering it that the Buffs have been unranked and upset a top 25 team at home. It's not often.
Yeah. So if Colorado rallies, they get to a bowl game this year. Is the Iowa State game a brick game in your opinion?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that if they can finish 3-2, 4-1, even down the stretch, uh, I think we'll look back at that game as saying that was the game that turned it around, right?
Yep.
And you obviously can't put it in there now because if they come out and go, 2-3 and they're a 5-7 football team, you can't have a brick game for a 5-7 team, But I think certainly, would you agree?
Yeah, I would. Clear turning point, like you said. And there were a lot of recruits in Folsom Field last
Mhm.
weekend. A couple commits that are getting poached by other programs have reaffirmed their commitment to Colorado. If they go to a bowl game, following the graduation of Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, retiring those numbers, you're going to be able to do just fine recruiting, building up for
Yeah,
the future. And so it really could be one of those games you look back to of being very critical for this era of Colorado football.
yeah, I agree. And the recruiting pitch, Coach Prime often says they don't pitch, but they need to lean in. If they get to a bowl, they need to lean in heavily on the back to back because first time in 20 years for this program to do that, they need to lean in heavily with this coaching staff. That look, we've done something that hasn't been done here in 2 decades. That should be a big pitch for them with recruits and transfers.
But if you lose to Utah, you got to go 3-1 down the stretch.
Yeah,
So
but I
it's going
think
to be no easy path
it's not
to
even an
that.
easy path. But um, I think they're very capable of going 3-1 in November, don't you?
Oh yeah, they're
Mhm.
capable for sure. But this is the Big 12, Brian. Like
Yeah,
you go out to Manhattan, Kansas, in late November. Who knows what that weather's going to be like? And
right.
Kansas State was one of the preseason contenders to win this conference.
Yeah,
And so you know they have talent on that football team. They're getting a little bit better.
yeah,
So that just is one game that you'd look to right now and go, yeah, that should be a win. But it's going
yeah,
to be tough. Like all these games are going to be tough. West
right.
Virginia, you said traveling so
Hmm.
far. Utah, a very tough challenge. Both Arizona schools at home. Uh, if you don't play a great game, they're going to beat you.
Right,
So
right.
there's a lot of pressure still in this program to try to get to that point of 6 wins.
Yeah, and even that quote easiest on the schedule, West Virginia, I just don't think it's that easy. When you're having to
It's,
go that far to play in a place you've never been before, and um, you know, we saw it last year. We thought at this time last year we would have thought, okay, that we would have marked a win at Kansas, right? Because Kansas was not going very well. And then they got their act together about 2 weeks before they faced the Buffs. Who knows what happens with West Virginia? Because Rich Rod's a good coach,
Mhm.
and if he gets them rallying a little bit, maybe they have some confidence going into that one. So you can't mark anything as a win in this conference, but I don't think you can mark anything as a sure loss either. Even Salt Lake City, I don't think you can mark it. That's about as close as I would mark as a sure loss, but I don't think you can even mark that as a sure loss.
it makes for a riveting football, at least.
Yeah, it
Very
does.
entertaining football. Outside of that Houston game that Coach Prime keeps talking about, that's the one game they got their butts kicked in this year. Aside from that, it's been, I know at times frustrating for Colorado fans with some of these close losses, but
Yeah.
it's been entertaining football we've seen this season, and
And
I would expect that to continue the next 5 weeks.
yeah, and I tell you what, if you could put that Houston game in now, I'd feel a lot better about CU.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
they're settled at quarterback. I think they would put up a better fight, maybe even win that game. So, even the one they got blown out in, I don't think that they're not 16 points worse than Houston, in my opinion.
No, probably not. No.
So awesome, Adam. Well, you have a safe drive out to Kansas, especially with your son driving, and hopefully you get some nice driving hours and keeps you all safe.
And tell your neighbors to stop lighting their garage cans on fire, and hopefully you can enjoy the rest of your bye week.
Yeah, I'm hoping to not put out any more fires. And we'll talk
Awesome,
to you
Brian.
soon.
Appreciate you, man.